And so I'm supposed to be happy that he turned around and broke her up from a man that actually loved her and wanted to take care of her so that she can marry him, a scrub. You know, I'm supposed to be happy about that. I'm supposed to think that was a great ending to this story. Disclaimer, I will be talking about these characters as if they are real people. So if you do not like that sort of thing, or people criticizing your favorite TV show, maybe you should exit now. I guarantee you I still will get those comments. As if I don't know Monique and Countess Vaughn are not separate people. Okay? With that being said, welcome to La Vida Rosa. I'm your host Pinky, and today we're going to talk about the Parkers. So if you would like to see more, then just stay tuned. But before we begin, I would like for everyone to check out my website, lavidarosastyle.com, where you can find cute accessories like the ones I'm wearing right now, and my faux mink lashes will be available soon. Like, comment, and subscribe, and without further ado, let's get into this video. All right, y'all, I already filmed this video once. The first time I filmed this, I kind of went off the dome. What I realized is when I go back and I rewatch things, I always pick up on things that I missed. So I'm glad I recorded this for a second time after I watched the entire series, because child, there's some things to discuss. Because it comes off as like a funny, mindless sitcom, and you can view it that way until you kind of get into the messaging and like some of the problematic things about this show that we'll get into later. But first I want to talk about what I liked about the show. In case you haven't seen my Moesha video, which will be linked down below, I talked about how Moesha got on my last nerve and how I felt like she was the antagonist even though she was the main character. But I also mentioned how much I loved Kim Parker, how she was my favorite character on the show. I love the fact that they came out with the Parkers and gave Kim her own show, because now we can see Kim like fully being herself without the judgmental eye of Moesha and her controlling nature. You got to see Kim as the free spirit who goes with the flow. She's not the brightest, so she's ignorant of a lot of things, which allows her to just do and say whatever it is that's on her mind. And I think that's what makes her so funny, is that she's not so uptight, and yeah, she doesn't really care what other people think or have to say about her for the most part. So I love that we got a show that we got to see Kim's world through her own perspective, not how Moesha views Kim, because I feel like a lot of times we got to see bits and pieces of Kim's personality, but it was like Moesha or somebody will always be there to kind of like tear her down, whether it was her weight, whether it was, you know, mainly it was her weight, and she really wasn't even that big. And that's the main thing that really upset me about that show, is that they would criticize her weight all the time. This show fit her personality perfectly. Very fun and very light. I have to say, this show is hilarious. Like, you can literally click on any episode and I'm guaranteed to laugh. I don't know about y'all's sense of humor, but I'm going to laugh. I don't care if I've seen that episode a million times. My favorite episode of all time is the Tebow episode. Mama killed him. Mama killed him. Tebow. That's my favorite episode. On top of that, as far as visually, I feel like this was great representation for bigger women, because every time you saw Monique, every time you saw Kim, if you consider her big, their makeup was on point, their hair was on point, their wardrobe was flashy. Their taste in fashion can be debatable, but I think we all can agree that they were cute and dolled up when you saw them on screen. Whereas in the media, usually bigger people, a lot of times, especially black women, get portrayed as big mama or like a auntie, or, you know, somebody that dressed in a way that you would expect like a grandma to dress. But Kim and Nikki, they dressed very flashy, very flamboyant. That's why I wanted to make sure I had like my flashy makeup on and my hair done, because that's the way they presented themselves on that show. And I thought that was great for bigger women to see that every week. On the show, they were extremely confident. Even Andale, like, they all exhibited confidence and they carried themselves with their heads held high. And I'm not saying that big women should not or do not in real life, but you know what I'm saying? It was just good to see that at the forefront, the main character. Kim was desired by all shapes and sizes, of men. Like, she always got hit on by an attractive man, you know, whatever you deem attractive. It seems like all shapes and sizes. Like I said, she got attention from those men, and she felt like she deserved to have attention from those men. Like, Kim was very shallow. She was very, very shallow. But in her mind, she thought she deserved the best looking man. When she thought those men were not treating her right, she was quick to push them to the side and let them know, look, I can do better than this. You know what I'm saying? She was in a band with her two best friends. She was the lead singer in the band. And you know, when you look at movies like Dreamgirls, usually they take the bigger person in the group and try to move her to the back. And they tried to do that on one episode. And I love how they showed that her talent outshined everybody in that group, and they needed her in order to succeed as a group. I also loved her friendship with Stevie, because I like how they flipped the narrative that, you know, usually you would think Stevie, the white girl with booty, you think she would get all of the male attention, when actuality rarely did she get that, and she was actually thirsty for it, and she was the one that was always single and had a not the best attitude, and she was a sidekick to Kim, who was the main character. Even though I give a side eye to the fact that they made Stevie seem like she was such a scholar and so intelligent, while they made Kim progressively into a bigger idiot. I do think as the series went on, they leaned a little bit too heavy on the Kim is dumb jokes. I mean, it just really got ridiculous by the time it got to season 5. Like, we get it, Kim is dumb, but I feel like it didn't have to be her main storyline that she was dumb. Like, either Kim was in a relationship or we're talking about how dumb she is. Like, I feel like they could have really taking it further than that. That was my only negative with Kim's character, like, because she was a little ditzy on Moesha, but they really, by the end of the Parkers, Kim was just a buffoon. Like, she was a complete fool, and it's like, why did it have to go that far? Like, I feel like the jokes became cheap at that point. So let's move on to Nikki. She kind of took away the stigma of going back to school and being around college students at a community college. Like, Nikki had no problem with, like, wanting to join a sorority with younger people, wanting to join the cheerleading squad. It's like they wanted her to feel shame that she was older than, you know, your average college student there. She was not ashamed of that. She was very proud of that. And I think that was great, because you should never be ashamed of going back and getting your education and trying to better yourself. And also, while she was in school, she was an entrepreneur. She sold Lady Egyptian, which is like similar to like Mary Kay or Avon. She tried to start a few businesses that might not have worked, but then she ended up, you know, catering, and that was like her thing. So she was a successful entrepreneur. Nikki outwardly gave a body positivity message for bigger women. There was even an episode where Nick Cannon played someone who was fat shaming bigger women through jokes, and so she came back and, you know, basically fought back and won, and told him skinny jokes and was going in on him. And, you know, it was just like an uplifting moment for bigger women. But like, skinny women would catch a stray by that. But at the end of the day, bigger women get degraded all the time by everybody to uplift themselves. So I guess that was just like a flip of the narrative. So, you know, I wasn't truly offended by it. It was just like, dang, like, I'm just sitting there, what did I do? How did I get in this? I feel like Nene. So one thing I noticed when I went back and I watched all of these old sitcoms, I'm going to be doing a rant on Girlfriends next, is that if there's a single person on the show, they're going to be man crazed. Regardless of whatever else they have going for them, they're going to be obsessed with at least one man, or just attaining a man in general, like the thought of attaining a man. When I think about Girlfriends, it was Joan mainly who was just obsessed with getting a man. But even Tony, she wanted a rich man. When you look at Living Single, Regine was obsessed with getting a rich man. When you look at That's So Raven, she was obsessed with getting Devon. It's like, if a black show had a single woman on it, most likely she's going to be portrayed as being man crazy or chasing after men or wanting a man so bad. And this show was no different. It's like Nikki knew her worth in every other aspect of her life. She knew her worth. She would like literally degrade herself for him. It was kind of cringy to watch at times, you know, especially watching it as an adult. It's like, man, like she really took herself all the way down here, even though she has all of this to offer. He treated her like she was this big. We gonna get to the professor in a minute. But when I do think about some of her love interests, her ex-husband who was rich, so he must have left her before he really made money, because he was rich, living lavish, and she was living in an apartment, splitting the rent with her daughter. And so she was treated bad in that situation. Another one of her exes was a gambler. The guy with the gray streak in his hair, I can't remember his name. He chased after her, but it started off like a game or a bet that he made that he could get her. Even though their relationship gave us one of the best scenes of the show, where she actually turned down the professor in front of everybody when he professed his love to her. Yeah, that was classic. And then she had another guy that actually did really care for her, proposed to her, and she was going to marry him. And she threw all of these men away from the professor. Like, literally, any good man, any man that showed her interest or would seemingly give her any sort of play, she would completely throw them away for the professor, who didn't care about her whatsoever. Which brings us to Professor Ogilvy. Now, the craziest part about this is the professor did not start off nasty. He didn't start off with a bad attitude. He didn't start off mean. He was actually very nice and polite to Nikki. But over time, his character became ruthless with fact jokes and insults. And I feel like over time, Nikki chasing him really gave him an unrealistic perception of his own desirability. When you first see him, it's like, okay, he kind of handsome. You know, he look like he got a good job, you know, from the outside looking in, perception. He's a professor. Okay. When you look, the way Nikki would look at him was even more like, she would like, you would think he was a professor at Harvard or something. You would think he was like rich, living in a mansion, the way she viewed him. But then when you actually saw the professor through other characters' eyes, through the perspective of other characters like Kim and Dale and other women, like when he would try to hit on women, you could see that Nikki was viewing him through rose-colored glasses, because in reality, he was a coward. He was broke. He didn't make that much money. He was expendable at his own job. He was one of the first people to get fired when they had to fire people. He was fake. He was a wannabe. He was low-key underachieving. These are all words that other characters on the show has described Professor Ogilvy with. Like, I didn't just come up with this. This is literally how they described him. So clearly he was not the most desirable, regardless of him having a girlfriend like Veronica. Professor was not out of her league by any means. They were low-key on the same level. And I feel like in a few years, the way Nikki's ambition worked, she would have surely surpassed him and definitely been out of his league. A lot of times his insults towards her was just a projection of his own insecurities. Now, I don't want to overlook Nikki's poor behavior, because she did stalk the man, and if the tables were turned, this would be a completely different, you know, conversation. But my whole thing about the professor is that he would constantly still put himself in a position to be in her presence. Like, he would come to her house and he would come to different events that he knew she would be at. He would put himself in a lot of those situations. So it's like he was inviting it from her. He should have been flattered that a woman like Nikki would want him, because she's beautiful, she's an achiever, she's a go-getter. She was the one who saved his job when he needed one. She always came to his rescue, and he never appreciated. She came through for him so many times when he needed it, and he couldn't even say thank you half the time. He got caught up with a gold digger and almost got taken out the game. She saved his whole life. She took care of him when he was dead broke. He was living with her and made her a whole slave maid taking care of him. And he did not appreciate her in any one of those scenarios. So you would think somebody who would act this way towards Nikki, just, you know, completely hated her, would not care about her whatsoever. But when I rewatched the series, the professor has led her on a few times. Like one time he almost got her pregnant. They had a pregnancy scare. And he tried to act dumb the next day, like he didn't realize what was going on. And instead of like just going on with like a co-parenting situation, he actually proposed to her. He didn't have to do that. I'm sure she could never force him to do that before, but he actually proposed. It was presented like Nikki would take advantage of him, but he was a willing participant. The professor is not underage. He is not a child. He is not an invalid. He was a grown man making his own decisions. So I don't understand why it was made to seem like Nikki was taking advantage of this man, when in these situations he made his own decision. Even after that situation didn't work out, he would literally lose his mind. Anytime she would get with any other man, he would lose it. Like he would go all out trying to get her back. And that's why I don't even acknowledge the last episode, because it low-key ruined the entire series for me. So that would mean this entire time he was playing this very juvenile, sick, sinister, psychological, torturing game of I like you, but I'm mean to you because I like you. You know what I'm saying? You know how little kids play on the playground and the little boy push you down because he actually likes you? That would mean in the long run, this was a very narcissistic torture tactic. He was a raging narcissist who was gaslighting her to like the highest level. And so I'm supposed to be happy that he turned around and broke her up from a man that actually loved her and wanted to take care of her, so that she can marry him, a scrub. You know, I'm supposed to be happy about that. I'm supposed to think that was a great ending to this story. No, the great ending would have been if she would have been like, you had your chance, okay? You could have had all this, but too late. It's Johnny's. You know what I'm saying? I'm Johnny's wife now, and you lost out and leave him on the corner crying. That would have been a great ending. That would have been so you know what I'm saying, an awesome bow to tie up this story. But no, we get her with this man with a personality disorder that is going to continue to degrade her further for the rest of her life, and she will gladly accept it and enjoy it and like, yes, a master to it, and just and think she's living in married bliss. So yes, I think this was not only a terrible message for big women to just accept the bare minimum as, you know, the best,
as well as tolerating literal abuse from your partner.
While I love this show, while I think it's hilarious, and I do think on some points there was great representation, I feel like the main running theme of the show was kind of toxic and not the best message at all. Like, even though I feel like especially grown people will look at this show and be like, I will never lose my mind over a man like this. I know we know plenty of people that maybe not to that degree, maybe not, you know, as exaggerated as it was on that show. We do know many people that do chase after men and, you know, will throw themselves at a man that's not even worthy of their time. And so it's kind of frustrating and aggravating when you actually sit there and really watch a woman like Nikki, who can do so much better, running after someone like as average as the professor. That's all I'm saying. You shouldn't do it for anyone, but especially not someone that can't, you know, even offer you much in return. So yeah, you guys, that was my rant for the Parkers. Y'all let me know how y'all feel about this show down below. Did you watch the Parkers when it first aired? How do you feel about this show in comparison to Moesha? Also, let me know how you feel about the running themes on this show. Do you think it was a bad message for women and young girls out there? Or do you think it was just a show, mindless entertainment? Who really cares? So I would love to hear your opinion, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in my next one. Peace.